Hey guys, Jason along with my co-host Rich, and on today's episode, we're going to take a dive into a story that will leave us with probably more questions than answers. Today, we're going to be discussing a tragic and chilling case that continues to haunt Oklahoma residents. It's going to be the brutal murder of Carina Saunders.
It's not always fun and games for first responders.
05 Central, you show me in pursuit.
But sometimes it is.
Oh my God, he's not wearing pants again.
Sometimes it's dangerous.
Flipping around, look out, look out, look out.
Sometimes it's not.
Antler Boulevard for a snake in a house.
And sometimes it's just plain stupid.
Chihuahua in his lap on a lawnmower.
This is the stupid side of first response.
Dispatch, do I really have to go to that?
This is Code 0.5.
Come in 0.5.
Remember stuff. Okay, guys, before we get diving into the episode, I'm going to let y'all know that we have a special guest that we are maybe halfway thrilled with having. The best part of this guest, though, was going to be if Marcus was here, but of course he had to bitch out because, what'd he say? He had a little cough?
Yeah, something.
He had a little tickle in his throat or something.
Somewhere, I think.
You know what I think it is that wasn't Jessica gone this weekend for something and he's by himself?
I think so, maybe.
He's probably nursing a hangover or something because he's been partying or something.
Probably.
Well, you never know because whenever you text a guy, you never hear back from him. So
he just leaves you on red.
I know he's such a bastard.
He is.
He's going to be the new Renix. Anyway, on today's episode, we are going to have. You like being called detective or investigator?
I believe it's chief investigator, sir.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was right.
Yeah.
She's acting like she's bashful, kind of scared of her microphone.
It's a really long, it's like lieutenant chief investigator or something.
Okay, well, we're going to call her
Dakota.
I'm trying to think of something. Anyway, it's detective or investigator Dakota Black is going to be with us. She's a seasoned investigator with 10 years of experience in handling complex and high-profile cases. You've probably seen her on TV a few times. Detective Black will be joining us to shed some light on this investigation and discuss the challenges law enforcement faced and share insights into where the case stands today. She's shaking her head right now because I'm making her sound a whole lot better than what she really is. So, you got anything to say? Are you going to be one of those that we have to prod you? You're just talking to us. That's all you're doing.
That's it.
It's my first time on a thing like this. It's a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it will be your first time. You might want to have to scoot up to the microphone a little bit, or you can hold it, whatever you need to do. Yeah, everybody's first time they get on here, it's this thing intimidates the shit out of them until they figure out you're just freaking talking to it, each other. And then later on, what's really going to throw you for a loop is when you listen to it and you're like, is that what my voice really sounds like?
Oh, I've done that on recordings before.
Okay, I know you've been on TV before.
Oh, yeah.
When you've seen your interviews on TV, what do you think about them?
I look like a damn fool.
I remember we went to, I can't remember what news station, and all the guys there were like, no, you have to do it. You have to, because none of them wanted to. Mm-hmm. So I got up there and talked, and everybody stood behind the camera and were making faces at me and shit and everything. Mm. Anyway, I'd mentioned that we're going to talk about Carina Saunders. Hopefully I say the last name right. I keep hearing Sanders and Saunders. But anyway, Karina was a 19-year-old girl when she was 19 at the time, when her life was taken in the most horrific way imaginable. She was described as vibrant, adventurous, and full of potential, and she was born and raised in Oklahoma. Is it Mustang?
Yeah, Mustang, Oklahoma.
Anyway, on October 13th, 2011, her dismembered body was found stuffed in a duffel bag behind a Homeland grocery store in Bethany, Oklahoma. The details of her death sent shockwaves through the community, and it sparked an investigation that, as of today, remains unsolved. Now, I know I said in here that she was found in a duffel bag. I think she was found in 2 different bags.
Yeah, 2 different bags.
Yeah, it was a small laundry bag and then a Nike duffel bag. Mm-hmm. And her remains were in both.
Now, she wasn't completely chopped up. There were only pieces of her that were cut off, right?
Right.
And like they'd attempted to cut the rest of her up. And from what we were reading and been told is that I guess the saw had broken and they couldn't. But anyway, we'll get up to that. So I don't know how much research y'all did into this. Hell, we might have to get Dakota's husband on here. I think he probably did as much research into it as what all of us did, or more.
He might cry if you take the football game away from him.
Oh, yeah, that's right. What's he watching down there?
KC Chiefs versus the Browns.
He's just grinning. We're disturbing him.
Yeah.
I do that same shit whenever my wife's talking, just grin and nod my head.
Not surprising.
So, Dakota, you can jump in there and talk about anything you want.
Well, I think
you gotta
she's got
talk.
her memoir and stuff, right?
I've got something pulled up that's kind of like a timeline, and it gives some information like about her. So she was, let's see.
Well, let's talk about her from before all this happened.
So she was born July 17th, 1992. Of course, her name was Karina. That was specifically chosen by her parents for its meaning, which roughly translated to Dear Little One. She was one of 9 children, but she was always able to stand out from the crowd. Let's see. She was relatively funny, but she lived with her family in Mustang. She graduated from Mustang High School. She became known for her constant singing, eventually being given a spot in honors choir and receiving operatic tutorials. So she was training to become an opera singer. So she must have had like hella pipes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
She was incredibly smart too. She won the school spelling bee 3 years in a row, and she was the region's top mathlete. She had won a statewide tournament in accounting and planned to become an accountant if she couldn't make it as a professional opera singer. But she had a good sense of humor.
Sounds like she had a good head on her shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted to do something that she knows the likelihood of it happening was slim. She had a backup plan. And
yeah, she graduated from Mustang High School in 2010, a year early, actually.
A year early?
A year early. So she was kind of on her way, but by 2011, she had gotten into some stuff that she probably shouldn't have. So I guess she had some issues with substance abuse and was dabbling in illegal narcotics. But she went to rehab to get herself back. And after her release, she seemed to be doing much better. So
that's the kind of shit that pisses you off, is that there's a kid there that's got so much potential, and then I don't know how or what had happened to make her do this, but she gets into drugs and then it destroys her life at 19.
Yeah. I mean, it's just getting worse now. I mean, heck, this was back then. But now they got the fentanyls.
Yeah, this was 2011. If you think back then, I was graduating high school that year. So I know what I was doing back then. Well, she's not much older than me. About a year.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. She was born in 92.
So let's see.
You graduated in 2011?
Yeah.
Damn, I thought you were my age.
Nope, I was born in 93.
Shit. I'm like exactly 10 years older than you. Youngin'.
So it looks like on September 18th, she was still fresh out of rehab, and she saw her mom that day. And per her parents and family and stuff, they said she seemed to be doing much better.
Does it say how long she spent in rehab?
No, it didn't. It says she seemed to be on the right track again. Her and her mother attended church that day there in Bethany, in which she posted about on social media. Apparently, social media was how her family and loved ones kept up with her, because she didn't have a cell phone or a vehicle of her own. So they used social media to kind of track her whereabouts and where she was at. Later that day, I guess she saw her mom, said goodbye. And then a little more than a week later, on September 28th, there was a post on social media that was, I guess, her last one. And it just simply said, "What's everybody doing tonight?" It got a few responses, and that was her last post on any social media. And about a week after that, her family began to get concerned because nobody had heard from her.
Well, on September 28th, too, it says that her cousin had went to Taco Bell with her, dropped her off, and a male had picked her up. Mm-hmm. And that was the last person known to be with her up until, like a week later when they had new information.
Mm-hmm. So some of the notes I've taken on this, they're kind of vague. It talks about the way she was found. There wasn't a man just out rummaging through the trash, was it? It was an employee of that grocery store.
They'd set some traps.
Yeah, according to what I have, it was like a non-humane society thing or something, but they were trying to trap feral cats to get them fixed and then re-release them. And they were the ones that discovered the bags behind the grocery store.
And see, the way that, they found her remains would make you think, that there was something symbolic about it. Like, it makes you wonder if she had done something wrong to somebody and they did this to her in that way to send a message to others. Well,
there was speculation in the case that she was involved in some human trafficking, that she was a victim of being trafficked, and that was ultimately why she was killed. However, that's never been proven, and I think it's just a theory that revolves around the case, but I can see why you would think that.
I remember reading about how, I can't remember the guy's name. He was her pimp.
Oh, Kenny?
Kenny, yeah.
So that dude's name is, what is it? Something like Kenny Richards? Yeah. So he apparently was an older guy whom Karina had told some family members and friends about. According to some familiar with this, he was involved with Karina in some kind of sex worker scheme. They implied that he was her pimp, but Karina told others that he was going to make her a porn star. In the following months, Kenny would be accused of, at one point, making a nude video of Karina and even soliciting her for prostitution. Mm-hmm. But he later testified that, I guess her and her cousin, like Dakota said, they went to a Taco Bell. She didn't leave with her cousin, though. She left with Kenny, and he testified to that fact, that they had hung out before he dropped her off at an apartment complex in Bethany.
But he says he didn't drop her off until the 6th or 7th, so he picked her up September 28th, and she was with him for all that time until ultimately dropping her off at the complex.
And where was he from? Where did he live at?
I don't have a lot on him.
Yeah, it doesn't say where he's from. But Karina was found on a surveillance camera 20 miles away from Bethany on October 8th. Mm-hmm. So she was still alive at that point, or it's believed to be so, if that is confirmed to be her on the surveillance footage.
So they found her on the 13th.
Yeah.
And they believe it happened on the 11th?
Yeah, so that was let's see. She was alive October 8th, yeah. On that day, which was a Saturday, she was spotted on CCTV footage from outside of the Newcastle Casino and Gaming Center, which was 20 miles south from Bethany. In that footage, she's seen getting into a red truck. Mm-hmm. It's a large four-door Ford pickup with a brush guard and lights on top. Looks like a group of men were in the truck, but only one could be described because one had actually gotten out. He had both his arms covered in sleeve tattoos.
Now, is that the dude that you have a picture of?
The sketch?
It might be him. It doesn't say anything about the tattoos. It just says that shows her getting into the truck and a dark vehicle was parked nearby. And in that car was a group of young women who seemed to be pleading with Karina not to get in the pickup truck. It's still unknown who any of those individuals were. The man or men from the Ford pickup haven't been ID'd either, and neither have the women from the dark vehicle. And those people would likely help fill in some of the gaps in Carina Saunders' story, because this is the last known place that police could track her activity.
Now, I wonder how good the video was.
I don't know. If you think back to 2011, we had razors and crazers. That's not very good quality.
Yeah.
So I don't know about the surveillance camera.
So I guess right after that, which would be October 29th of 2011, Karina's cousin, it's Catherine, received a threatening text message that seemed to indicate something had happened to Karina. Let's see.
Yeah, it says it was from Kyle Savage. And the quote, it says, "I will bury you next to Karina." It says Savage is yet to fully explain the message, only saying it was taken out of context and that he believed he was texting someone else and not Karina's family member. However, I feel like before her body's even found and she's discovered, he's saying he'll bury her next to Karina, meaning he had information prior to her being found.
Mm-hmm.
And they are thinking that it was the 11th that it happened to her, right?
Right.
And what day did he send that?
October 9th. She was last seen on the surveillance camera at the casino the 8th. The text messages sent the 9th. She's thought to be killed the 10th or the 11th, and then she is ultimately found the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a little strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, it leads you to believe that he knows that something is going to happen to her or something did happen to her.
Yeah.
But then the buried part throws you off because she wasn't buried.
Bro said later on Kyle would be unable to fully answer questions about the text he sent. Simply stated that they were poorly timed but not incriminating. Really? Seriously?
Pretty strange.
That's pretty incriminating.
Well, once you read everything about it, you're like, holy shit, there's probably numerous people that know what's going on or that were involved.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and investigators, they believe that they had identified the location where she was murdered, but it was demolished.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't even able to go in and assess the location and collect evidence. It was already gone.
The day she was found, actually, it was demolished the day she was found.
Which is also a little...
Yeah. From what I'd read, they gotten the permit like the 12th or whatever to demolish this building. And then on the 13th or, whatever days line up, it was torn down. The guy that actually bought the building was a property investor, and his history or whatever of buying buildings like that is that he would buy them, fix them, and then rent them. And he was questioned as to why he would buy this one and tear it down. And I think he even said that the reason he did was because there was so much traffic in and out of that building that was drug related. And it's like, okay, either he did research or how in the hell does he figure that out after owning it for one damn day?
Mm-hmm.
Or however long he had it. I don't think he owned it for very long.
Exactly. So if there's some kind of trafficking going on, I mean, that would...
And if you look it up, the location where this building is that was demolished, it still is an empty lot.
Really?
He didn't put anything on it or nothing. So why would a property investor buy a location, tear it down, and then not do shit with it?
Yeah.
It's not making him any money. It's costing him money. He's got to pay taxes on it.
Mm-hmm. So let's see. So now we're to the 13th when she was discovered, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I know we're explicit. I don't know how much you want to get into the details of her discovery.
Yeah, dude, say everything.
Okay. So let's see. The 13th, again, the animal rescue group had been attempting to trap feral cats and discovered the duffel bags, both of which were emitting a foul odor, and they contacted the police. When they got there, they discovered a black duffel bag was resting beside another smaller laundry bag. An examination of the interior of the bags revealed a pretty bad sight. The decapitated and dismembered remains of Carina Saunders. Her body parts had been individually cut and then wrapped in plastic wrap and stored inside these bags. Her head and neck were inside the smaller laundry bag, while her other body parts were in the larger duffel bag. It did not appear that she had been killed there at the scene, but they surmised that her remains had likely been disposed of at that location, which was probably chosen at random. Investigators would later state that the remains had likely been there for 3 to 4 days due to the decomposition that was already underway. Of course, at that time, the ID of the victim wasn't known, so they had to spend the next several days attempting to ID who it was. It says, however, they had a good idea from the jump, and the following day, which was October 14th, October 14th, members of the Bethany Police Department met with Karina's family to ask for dental records. They did not allow the family to view the body, though, believing this would not help anyone, and it doesn't sound like it would.
No, I won't know if I would. I mean, we're all parents. Would you want to see what had happened to your kid?
No.
That would be the last image in your head of your child.
Yeah. So I guess now we're getting into the investigation portion of it.
And the investigation hits numerous dead ends.
Yeah. And again, they had suspected she was part of a human trafficking ring in Oklahoma City, but I don't think that was ever actually confirmed. They did find some evidence that did point towards that, but again, I don't think it was ever 100% confirmed.
Right.
Just speculation.
So I guess early on, they focused on a person named Cody Perez, who was an acquaintance of Karina's. He was going to a local culinary school and working at Olive Garden at the time of her murder. On the same day that she was reported missing, October 10th, Cody decided to skip town. He pawned off his knife collection to a pawn shop in Bethany and decided to leave the area. There was, I guess, rumors that he had begun hitchhiking or headed towards Arizona or California. Of course, because of the poorly timed escape from the region, Perez was labeled as a person of interest, and he was singled out for the numerous juggalo tattoos he had all over his body. If you guys aren't familiar with what a juggalo is, it's there's a rap group, Insane Clown Posse. And
Oh, yeah.
they use a little hatchet man with dreadlocks as their logo. It used to be just a logo, but now it's kind of gotten synonymous with like gang activity and stuff like that. But they were, I guess, reporters were wanting to link lyrics from the Juggalo themed raps from Insane Clown Posse to the murder of Carina Saunders, because they do talk about cutting people's heads off and stuff like that, dismembering bodies. Their raps are pretty graphic, although they claim to be Christian.
Yeah, I've heard some of their music, and it definitely is.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. But then, like, have you read any stories about these guys? Like, they are very involved in their community and donating money and helping people. And yeah, if you're listening to their music, you'd think that they're just, scum of the earth type of people, but that's totally different from what they are.
So,
have you read about it? Why are you laughing?
I'm just laughing because I've heard their music.
Yeah.
It's like that Oogie Boogie Boogie song or whatever. That song used to scare me when I was a kid. I would not want him coming to mow my yard.
Yeah, from what I've read or what I saw on something is that they're actually decent guys.
Oof, wow.
yeah, so they had like a bunch of albums and everybody would collect them and stuff because of the cards on the front. And then everybody was waiting for the very last one to drop. And when it dropped, it was completely different from everything else that they had put out. And that's when they were saying that it was all about the journey to God and all this other crap. And I'm like, how do you get chopping people's heads off to, okay, whatever, I guess, whatever. But they ended up locating Perez, and he spoke with police. And they retrieved the knives that he had pawned off. They tested. They didn't have any kind of human blood on them or anything. He was clear.
Why does he pawn all that shit off and then flee town? He's got to know something.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, I think, in this case that know a lot of things. They just have never came forward.
Yeah.
I think that is the reason where... or the reason why I'm okay with waterboarding. I mean, anyway, continue.
So they said like, bro just dropped off the face of the earth. Like I guess he didn't tell anybody or anything.
He was friends with her.
He just bounced. Yeah.
She had a boyfriend at that time too.
Yeah.
But I think he was in jail for like domestic abuse or something whenever all this stuff happened. So they ruled him out pretty quick.
Yeah, I don't know. He said his thing for why he left out of state was because of a relationship dispute, which apparently had nothing to do with her.
Oh, yeah. There's a relationship dispute with the dude that chopped her up.
And I guess at this point, the FBI gets involved, and investigators would interview more than 80 witnesses over the next several months, many of whom were drug users and addicts, but they were people related to Karina's known social circle.
Wait, I didn't know the FBI got involved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, OSBI did too.
I knew they did. I didn't know the FBI did.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. So Cody was the first person of interest, but he was cleared. But he was quickly followed up by Kyle, which he was the guy that sent that text message to Karina's cousin about putting her, whoever, next to Karina.
Burying
them next to him.
Yeah, police said he had nothing new to offer them and was cleared after a single interview. He continued to state that the morbid coincidental text message meant nothing. Dude, that's cap.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
One interview eliminates him.
Yeah.
It's a little strange.
So they were able to track her last known whereabouts, the apartment complex near Northwest 41st and MacArthur. They discovered CCTV footage of her outside of the Newcastle Casino, which put her last known whereabouts of October 8th, 2011, 5 days before her remains were discovered. They gave investigators a tentative timetable for her death, which they hoped would help narrow it down the suspect pool. Now is where we're getting into the Harvey Street address that you said was bought. It's 3500 South Harvey Street in Oklahoma City, which is now an empty lot. There was a house there that was there, like Jason had said. Coincidentally, the house that was there was demolished on the same day, like I said, that Karina's body was found, and had a long and storied reputation for being a hot spot for lowlifes and delinquents.
And there's an apartment complex right next to it.
Yeah.
Which Karina ended up having knew a friend that lived there, I believe it was, that she went to high school with. Because whenever her remains were discovered and they said that they were in a duffel bag, he was worried because whenever he saw her, she was carrying her clothes around in a laundry bag, and he gave her a duffel bag. And he fed her, and then, what was it? He took her to I can't remember where they took her. I can't remember where it was now, but he took her somewhere after he got her something to eat, because she said she looked like she hadn't eaten in days, and she told him that she hadn't eaten since like the day before or something at breakfast. And I guess he felt sorry for her, and then it was a couple days later, and she ends up being dead.
So I guess neighbors referred to that Harvey address as a drug house, which is, I guess, not only drugs, but violence and sex workers, all kinds of stuff. I guess police were called to that home more than a dozen times, at least once in 2010 when a sex offender attempted to commit suicide there, and in 2011 when someone had attempted to set the house on fire. That was professionally demolished in October of 2011.
Which is just so crazy to me. Which, investigators aren't always going to put everything out in the newspaper articles, but it'd be interesting to know when they learned about that home prior, if it was prior to being demolished, after it was demolished. Obviously, if it was demolished the day before, or the day of, or even the day after she was found, there's nothing investigators could have done. But
I think what I read is that when they figured out the address, that it was after it had been torn down and cleaned up. And
that makes it really hard on the investigation. If you don't have a location, that does hurt the investigation.
I mean, as far as I know, to this day, they still aren't sure where the crime scene is.
Yeah.
And like, when they discovered her remains, I guess there was body parts that were missing. Like not everything was there.
I'm getting to the autopsy part. It says that they did search the empty lot where that house stood, but nothing could be found linking her to the home. But yeah, I'm there.
They'd need to get a hold of the company that demolished it and be like, hey, where'd you take the remains from the house?
Mm-hmm. So now we're at the autopsy, and just again, it's pretty explicit. You want me to?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Kids, what is it? Earmuffs?
Earmuffs. So they classified Carina Saunders' death as a violent death. It's labeled a homicide in the official autopsy report. Her remains had been dismembered, but investigators were unable to recover some of her body parts, in particular her hands and feet, as well as portions of her forearms, her left breast, and the clothing that she had been wearing at the time, or any other personal effects. They did find evidence of duct tape having been wrapped around her thighs before her death, and police later noted that there were suspicious contusions over her right cheek and on the back of her right shoulder, which they believe indicated some form of torture before her death. According to the official report, it looked like whoever committed this had attempted to remove a tattoo from Karina's upper back. The tattoo was located directly between her shoulder blades and read Queen, Kween, Spade, Spade, and was pretty unique in that regard. The autopsy revealed that there were rectangular cut marks around the tattoo indicating an attempt to remove it. Likewise, her hair had been cut incredibly short for an unknown reason, likely to remove evidence, but it remains unknown why they had cut her hair, but not gone to further lengths to hide her identity. Pathologists that conducted the autopsy theorized that she had been drugged before her death due to postmortem toxicology studies from her liver. They came back positive for tramadol, which is a non-narcotic pain reliever that's most often used to treat pain after surgery. It is a prescription drug, so it's not something that you can easily get from Walmart. However, in 2011, before agencies started to crack down on opiates, it was fairly easy to get tramadol. It's unknown how it ended up in her system.
You know, another theory or whatever they want to say is that they believe that Karina could have been mistaken for someone else. And that's why the tattoo was removed. The hair was cut shorter. And I thought they said there was a bunch of cut marks and slashes on her face.
We'd have to get that report. It says because of the decomposition, pathologists were unable to obtain blood samples to confirm how much tramadol was in her system, but it was there to some degree. Based on the circumstances, it was impossible to determine whether or not she was alive when it took place. It did remain a possibility, but they could not rule it definitively one way or the other. I guess these findings weren't released for close to a year because they wanted to build a case against the primary suspects. The findings from this autopsy would provide the framework for their pending investigation, which was building itself around two suspects, both of whom would be charged less than a year after Karina's remains were found.
Is that Ruiz and Massey?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which they were let go in 2013 due to lack of evidence, they said.
Now, am I reading right? Massey confessed,
Yes.
claiming that he was involved in the torturing?
Yeah.
Well, you got, was it Lewis?
Ruiz or something.
Yeah, Luis or Lewis or whatever.
R-U-I-Z.
Yeah.
So about those two and then how they came about. So in May of 2012, a woman named Tia was hanging out with a friend at the Bel Air Motel in Oklahoma City. She claimed that when her friend named Lewis went to the bathroom, she began looking through his phone, and in his videos, she claimed she found a grating photo or video which showed the murder of Carina Saunders. Tia knew Karina from prior run-ins, claiming that she had been forced to babysit Karina on more than one occasion. You were saying something about them having a babysitter?
Well, they were babysitting her as they were portraying her as the human trafficking victim, saying they had to watch her to make sure she was behaving.
Weren't they calling her by a different name or something, dude?
Yes, they were calling her Howard. That's the name they gave her, but she was later identified as being Carina Saunders.
So according to Bethany police, the video was incredibly graphic and showed the brutal, prolonged butchery that went into the murder. There was a lieutenant that wrote in an affidavit. Tia said she watched for a few seconds until Saunders began to scream. And then in his affidavit, the lieutenant would later write that Tia's friend Lewis was the person in the video cutting off the foot of Carina Saunders.
So did law enforcement see the video ever? I've never found an article that said they did.
I think she went to the police
And just told them.
that she had seen the video. But it says right here, she watched. Yeah, it sounds like he's taking her statement. Said she watched for a few seconds until she began to scream, but that the person in the video cutting off the foot was Luis Ruiz.
Well, I know in 2016, OSBI offered $10,000 for the video believed to exist of Karina's murder. So I just didn't know if they'd ever seen either snips or the steel frames or anything of it, or if they only have secondhand knowledge of it. I've never found an article that says they've actually physically seen the video. Law enforcement.
Oh, here we go. So what do you got? They had some dude, Lewis. So you got Luis Ruiz. He was arrested, and then he was being charged along with a friend of his, Jimmy Massey. Both men had a bunch of priors related to drug offenses. I guess they have a lengthy criminal history.
And Massey was the one that confessed to it?
Yeah.
According to statements gathered by Tia and other investigators, I guess there was an alleged criminal organization headed by Ruiz and Massey, which dabbled in drug dealing, human trafficking, and potentially murder. The two men were linked to a number of other acquaintances of Karina's.
Well, also in the arrest affidavit for those two, it says a woman named Michelle told police she went to the house on South Harvey in Oklahoma City with Saunders and witnessed Ruiz physically beat Carina Saunders, then tie her up. Ruiz then dragged Saunders to an upstairs room, tied her to a small table and twine before using the saw on her feet. And it goes on to say that one of her feet were removed, but the saw broke while trying to remove the other one. And it all tied back to being a human trafficking victim. The female was able to jump out the window and escape after the murder, but she'd known her before because Ruiz had said that they were going to deal with her, and it all had to tie into the human trafficking.
Yeah, according to that woman, she was being forced to witness the dismemberment of Karina. It was a power move, showing her and others what happened to women that didn't play ball. Presumably, they were all to become victims of human trafficking and forced into some kind of prostitution scheme. Michelle's testimony put the date of Karina's murder as October 11th. She stated that the murder happened in the now demolished home at 3500 South Harvey.
So why is it that all these people's confessions and interviews are like, from what I saw, they were saying a bunch of people that their stories, that nobody's stories were lining up together.
They sound pretty...
Well, here's...
Because like it says here on this Massey, his confession was later deemed unreliable.
It says 2 inmates shared a cell with Jimmy Massey, and they would later claim that he confessed to involvement in the crime. They seemed to validate the prior witness statements to a T, and included details about how Massey had conspired with Ruiz to dismember the young woman. So they had cellies that were telling them this guy did it.
So you got a woman that saw the video. You've got another woman that says she was there, or was this the same woman?
Nope, different woman. She said she was there when the murder happened.
Then you've got a confession from Massey.
A direct confession, yeah. Plus cellmates confessing or saying that they had confessed to them, and all the stories are the same.
But then after Massey was arrested, him and Ruiz end up both being released due to a lack of evidence.
Yeah, and in the, I guess that Massey had done some handwritten notes while he was in the jail and was passing them between cells. I don't know if they were intercepted or given to the jailers or how they obtained these, but the handwritten notes that were compared to his handwriting, which confirmed they were written by him, they shared details of the case that nobody else would have known, such as the dismemberment, things that had occurred, and it was confirmed to be in his handwriting.
So at the time, these people that were saying that she had one foot cut off and then the other one, they attempted to, but the saw broke. They hadn't released any of that information.
Correct, because they withheld the autopsy.
So they would have either seen it or know somebody or something.
Yep.
Yeah, it says a confidential witness told police she was kidnapped and forced to watch as members of a human trafficking ring tortured and killed Saunders to send a message to others to cooperate with their illegal activities, which we were talking earlier about, that maybe why people aren't coming forward or 100% cooperate, because that could be a reason why the charges have not stuck is people aren't being fully cooperative.
Yeah.
They may have given the information, but then backed out and they're refusing to testify or whatever the case may be because they're scared that'll happen to them.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's where the lack of evidence could come in.
Well, they're saying that both these guys had some kind of were potentially tied to the Mexican cartels, so that's gonna freak people out. You know what I mean? I mean, it sounds like cartel situation. But then too, said the things that investigators were saying seemed to be based more on hearsay than actual evidence. It's been pinpointed that many of the witnesses themselves had issues of credibility, and that police were leaning on convicts or felons with established criminal records whose testimony carried less weight in courtrooms than just about anyone. So you have all these people with all these issues that are giving you informations, but I mean they're just not credible. And then I guess after that, they kept looking around hoping to find evidence of that video. So they were searching through phones, cameras, hard drives, Sims, SD cards, any device in hopes of getting footage of that murder, because that would obviously cement the case and provide validity to all this witness stuff. But that drug out into months, and the suspects continued to sit in jail without receiving any bail. And investigators began to figure out that no such video existed, at least no video that they could find. And about that time, their most credible witness, Tia, changed her testimony. Instead of claiming that she had seen the video, she now claimed that she had heard about the video from a friend of hers.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, see, now it makes you wonder if someone else had told her to say that.
Well, yeah, she
To keep
probably
her
had the fear put in her. Or maybe she thought, you know, if she was being untruthful, maybe she thought she was going to be in trouble at that point. But I bet somebody scared her. That's probably why she changed.
Well, I mean, think about it. If you're in her shoes, you know, somebody that's doing similar shit to what you're doing just got killed and chopped up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
While she's alive, that's terrifying.
Yeah, I guess it ended up at that point. When stuff started falling apart, Bethany Police Department asked for OSBI's help to begin overseeing the case. And that was encouraged too, because things weren't, I guess, lining up. And then in February, all the charges against Ruiz and Massey were dismissed due to lack of evidence. Investigators had been unable to find anything linking the defendants to the murder of Carina Saunders beyond witness testimony, all of which was rather dubious, again, because it was all people that couldn't be relied upon. No cell phone video of her murder was found, and the two main eyewitness reports, one of which had been recanted, gave conflicting details about where the murder had happened and how. So, here we go.
We'll have more coming up on Code 0.5.